about feelings and emotions as feelings versus emotions, because feelings are not the same as emotions. Dictionaries define feeling as an emotional perception or attitude. So, is a feeling an emotions, or is it an attitude, or is it both? Because the word feeling is also used to describe other experiences, such feeling of warmth, or feeling of sentience, or feeling of knowingness, right? So when you have a feeling of knowingness, that's not an emotion. So it's good to learn how to distinguish between feelings and emotions. In psychology, however, the term feeling is related to emotion, and it refers to the conscious, subjective experience of emotions. Why subjective? Because it's subjective to you. Every single person experiences emotion in their unique, particular subjective way, because you're a subject, you're not an object. Okay, now that was funny, right? Now, neuroscientist Antonio Damasio distinguished between emotions and feelings as such. Emotions, Antonio Damasio says that emotions are mental images representing internal or external states of reality, and the bodily changes accompanying those emotions. And this is according to neuroscientist Antonio Damasio. And according to Antonio Damasio, feelings are the perceptions of bodily changes. So it's a bit confusing. It is and it isn't, right? But to make it simpler and clearer is that an emotion is a response to a specific stimuli, whether it is a belief or a memory. Because emotions, they have intentional load. They are about something, and they are often about the stimuli. And very few people are aware, or at least very few pay attention, that a belief system, a value system, it's a stimuli, because we understand stimuli as an external stimuli, but we have internal stimuli as well. And psychologists say that emotion work is the art of trying to change the degree or quality of an emotion. And that emotion work may be defined as the management of one's own emotional response, or work done to maintain a relationship. And there are a lot of disputes whether an emotion work is done by regulating one's emotion or extends to performing the emotional work for others. And this is a big topic of discussion. We're not going to solve it tonight. But what I'd like to stress on that, whether in emotion work we go about regulating one's own emotions or extend to performing the emotional work of others, is that through fearfulness techniques, I've observed people's capacity to do both, to positively influence their emotions and the emotions of others simultaneously. Randy?
Well, we can discuss what you brought up in your book, neuroscientist Antonio Damasio. Emotional work involves two main processes: evocation and suppression. Evocation used to bring up a certain feeling, suppression used to put away or hide certain unwanted feelings. Right?
Yes.
Is there is one better than the other, or is there something that we should be aware of in terms of those?
Personally, I don't believe one is better than the other. It's just something that has been done, and it's just something that has been done for a while. And this is what psychology continues to do. And especially medicine, prescription medicine, well, alcohol too. If you look at it, a lot of people use alcohol to medicate themselves. It's that those suppress an emotion. And oftentimes when people explode, and we do explode because sometimes we just explode, or we throw an object, or we throw something towards somebody, or we just say something, or a word just comes out, or our voice goes up. That's a little bit of that's an emotional release. If we suppress too much, we're going to explode. And that's not good. That's not good. And there are ways to evoke. I usually work with evoking a certain feeling that by default will, not that it will suppress, but by default, it will not only you're not going to explode, but the suppression, there is going to be no need for the suppression because it's going to be automatic. And it's just an auto response because the human body and the mind has a beautiful auto response mechanism. Thank God it has auto response mechanism, right? And the amygdala is in charge. Main roles of the amygdala is to help you defend for your life. If you're chased by a bear, you're supposed to run. You're not supposed to look at the bear and say, "Oh, that's so cute. Look at the little cutie pet. Let me pet the bear." No, you run. Even if it's a tiger, you're not staying there to pet the tiger. It's not a kitty cat. You run, right? So, and when we are faced with a lot of stress throughout the day, work stress, traffic stress, technology stress nowadays, sometimes we feel like, you cannot express those emotions. And because we don't express them, there's lots. I had a stampede of sentences just come to me on how to say this, but because we suppress these emotions, because we have not learned how to not suppress this emotion or how to manage emotions, then we go about suppressing, and then we bottle them up, and then eventually we will explode. And that's not healthy. There are ways to express an emotion without insulting anybody, without throwing anything to anybody. Just like if the bear chases you, you run away. You're not trying to have a conversation with the bear, is it? I mean, is something to do when a bear chases you? I don't think so. So why would we do the same with technology? Well, technology is not going to chase us, but we have a laptop doesn't work or something on the screen, the circle goes round. It's like, I clicked on it, how many more times to click on it? And, you get, because you have a deadline and you have to get to it. And then you might need to print something and the printer, it's not working. Well, we haven't printed that much lately because, working from home, and then the internet doesn't cooperate, and then you got to get to where you're going and doesn't work. And then, all kinds of emotion. But when appropriate, and you can still do it with other people in a softer way, all you have to do is breathe out. Just like that. And sometimes if you're all by yourself, you might just go, kind of make a little bit of noise. And the moment you make that noise, you might start laughing, and that's all you need. You've expressed an emotion, and even through the sound of, you've evoked an automatic response within you. And if you happen to smile, that's great success, right? Then you know how it works, then you can teach others. If you have a lot of people around you, you can just go, especially if you're not in a meeting. Yeah. Well, on Zoom, you can mute yourself. But when face to face with people, you cannot mute yourself, and you cannot go, make a lot of noise because they're gonna look at you. It's like, what's going on? We're grown-ups over here. We don't do those kind of sounds. So at the time, you just breathe out. Feel the air coming through your lips. And then continue to push that a little bit with your tummy. Now, hopefully your breath is not bad breath. A lot of people have bad breath, but they make theta breaths. And now with a mask, if you're wearing a mask, nobody cares if you have a bad breath. But suppressing emotions is a healthy way to not necessarily suppress and bottle up and put a zipper on it and then it's just going to explode, but managing, using evocative ways, evocative techniques, which breathing is evocative. Why? Only that which is alive can be evoked. Don't quote me on it, or go and quote me on it. You can't evoke something that's dead. Right? So as long as you're breathing, you're alive. So you can evoke your breathing to automatically engage the management of your emotions. I'm sorry that this sounds very simple, but breathing is very significant, right? And after you learn more and more techniques, then you learn how to shift. For example, if you learn my word triangle techniques, which I call them thought feeling practices, you get the triangle. After you practice a few triangle, you shift into a triangle, and those techniques are meant to not suppress. And not, if you think of suppression as like a strangling, like, something strangles you and you cannot breathe. This is what I'm thinking of suppression right now. Through word triangles, you can shift into managing, evoking a natural response to a concept in the moment, through what's appropriate in a particular moment. If you're on Zoom, you can mute your Zoom. If you're not on Zoom, then you cannot use sounds, right? And shift, transform into the evocation of those words provided by the triangle. And why? Because too many people are caught up in the expressive type of an emotional work. And we need to express ourselves, but we also need to be kind and not polite, but just be kind and have empathy. And if all we understand is that someone in front of us, they have difficulties through their life, they're going through something, they have some sort of pain going on that they're going on through. If all we understand is this, then it will be easier for us not to throw out our emotions at them. Because too many people are caught up in the expressive type of emotional work. Well, express yourself properly. Well, you don't want to express yourself properly. You just kind of want to just let it out. So breathe it out. Yeah, breathe it out, because it's just going to be out. You want it out. Then you breathe it out, right? Because very few people work on the cognitive and bodily types of the evocative processes, which they actually turn out to provide much greater value. Because through the word triangles, we work on evoking your bodily, automatic mechanism that evokes a process in your body that your amygdala is going to like. And studies have shown that, studies under functional MRI have shown that people that are pessimists, their amygdala gets light up and it gets triggered when they are shown sad or violent images right away. And then the same violent and sad images were shown to happily prone people, and their amygdala would not light up right away. So that is a big deal, because the amygdala doesn't decide. The amygdala's role is to defend for your life, right? But it is our perception of the events. Like when you look at some images, like right now, you look at some war images, and then if you get stimulated and you're about to engage in violence, well, that's not good. And we've seen a lot of violence lately. That's a bit too much violence happening lately. So if we learn how to use the automatic process mechanism, the bodily changes, the conscious, mostly the subconscious processes of the bodily changes to evoke an emotion that's more of a thought feeling that will have you respond as opposed to react, then you're just going to have a happier life, because many emotions can lead to harm. And a lot of people, when they're dealing with an overwhelming amount of stress, and we have been dealing with an overwhelming amount of stress lately, a lot of us, some of us, they know how to manage the overwhelm of the stress, but most of us, they have some difficult days. It's not like either or, sometimes it's a good day, sometimes it's not a good day. But when we are dealing with this overwhelm amount of stress, this can lead to self-harm, whether it's conscious or unconscious. And then how do you know? Well, when you're in a good emotional state, you just don't want the feeling to end. And you're kind of stuck on that. It's like all you want is that, why isn't that happening, that which makes you feel good? Well, that can't happen all the time. But you can use your thought feelings to make that happen internally. Why? Well, because your brain doesn't know. Your brain doesn't know. Okay, it's more complex than this, but there is the ability, you have the ability to use internal processes to shift what you feel about a situation to adjust your emotion. And the moment you turn your emotion into a thought feeling, you have multiple choices. Randy?
Multiple choices in terms of how you think about it or feel about it? Or
both, because it's a thought feeling. Some people are more into their thoughts, and some people are more into their feelings, and it's not right or wrong. And sometimes we're more into the feelings, like when we're hungry, we're just going to have a feeling of hunger. That's not an emotion. It's a feeling, right? When you're sleepy, you're not having an emotion. You feel it that you need to go to sleep, right? And then when you focus on something, you feel that you're focusing on something. And feelings and emotion, they're not the same thing. And if we orient towards transforming an emotion into a feeling, and there are techniques to do that, hence the feelfulness book, right? And this is a technique. There's techniques that comes with that. There's word triangles, that thought feelings. That's a bit of concepts at the beginning, but after that, just practice and a lot of fun. Yeah. Because through the feelfulness techniques, you learn how to feel a feeling or how to have an emotion in anticipation of. And people that meditate, they know very well what that means, because when you meditate and when you do visualization, and you imagine yourself into a situation, into a happy situation, the brain will produce the good neurotransmitters, and it'll produce the good brain waves, because the brain has no clue that what you're visualizing is a reality or is it not reality. Just like right now, me and you, we're on technology. So is this real or is it not real? Well, it is real, right? But I can choose to perceive it as, no, that's not real because there's technology. And maybe that was the case, how long ago. And there is a lot of stuff that it's not real during technology and with technology, right? So reality is it's relative. So what is real to someone is highly, highly relative. Einstein proved that to us with physical aspects, not with emotional aspects, because emotions are all subjective. We already know that they're subjective, right? So, but you've had your, how many years of psychotherapy work that you've had your examples and you've gone through emotion work?
Yeah, you had, yeah, I haven't done the therapy in a long time, but yeah, I have about 20 years of therapy in terms of doing therapy. That's interesting because it's seems to be either getting people to express more emotion or express less. Sometimes it's kind of finding a happy medium.
Yeah, but you see that there's more available than that. These are just old patterns, because you can express appropriately. You can kind of let it out, because if you bottle it up, it's not going to get anywhere. But don't go toward violence and criticism. It's not going to get you anywhere. The moment you take control over your bodily perceptions, then you have power. Because if you don't have control over, you don't have power. I mean, if a bear chases you, what you going to do? You're going to say, oh, what a cute bear, let me pet it. No, you're not. Then why would you do the same with an anger that comes over when the internet breaks down and you can't get to what you get to? So of course you're going to have an emotion right away, because I mean, I'm not void of emotion. I get upset at the computer. God help me, how often, right? But then I realized, oh, it's just a computer. Let's just wait. Okay, so get up, have a glass of water until the internet comes back, or until the round goes, instead of sitting and clicking on a mouse a little harder. It's not going to happen any faster, right? So some things they work a certain way, and then you can use that mechanism to your advantage in a healthy manner.
Now, you talked in the book, you talked about cultural norms and accepting of cultural norms, right? Or at least understanding them. Is that how you saw it? How cultural norms in terms of emotional work go? What's culturally
Well,
appropriate?
different, yes, when this is a big topic, because different cultures, they're hot-blooded and not so hot-blooded people on different cultures. And in some culture, you're like in Japan, for example. I have a Japanese friend that in Japan, they are thought to be very proper and always respecting the other, never reacting, at least to in front of them. But through that, it kind of puts you into a position in which you're not going to generate a lot of emotions, because what you need to generate in a state is respect. So that's one of the states I've been described in creating ease. Because if you busy yourself with generating a state of respect, you're not going to have a whole lot of room for anger and disappointment and criticism and all kinds of resentment. So that's a good way. It's just, if all we practice throughout life is respect, we're going to get far. And the emotional load, your emotional load, it's going to diminish. Because the moment we get emotional, it's when we disagree with something, when we criticize something, when we disagree with something, when we figure, well, that's not fair. It's probably not. And oftentimes it sucks. And how do I deal with emotions all the time? Sometimes I just look at it and say, well, honey, that sucks. So even acknowledging and not even trying to put a label on it of how terrible that is and how it should be, it's just, oh, that's not good. But then when you say that's not good, it's kind of, I don't know. It's just when you say, oh, that sucks, it's kind of, through the word, as you say, sucks, there's air coming through the mouth, and that provides down regulating automatically. And you haven't done a lot of emotional work. Well, you just use the word. Because you can watch your body when you say, well, that's not good. You see how the body kind of tenses up? Yeah, instead of, oh, that sucks. So your muscles are immediately in a different position, automatic different position. And that sucks. It's not the most elegant language, but most of the time you can use it. It's PG-13.
Yeah, the idea of cultural norms is real complex, especially in terms of emotions and who should express them and who can and who can't. And you had mentioned something about Hochschild. I'm not sure if I can pronounce that right. Emotional work, unpaid emotional work, emotional labor, kind of new concepts.
Yeah, these are some quite interesting concepts with emotional work and emotional labor, because oftentimes, like when we're in a family situation, we oftentimes we do the emotion work of others. And example of emotion work includes showing attention, apologizing after an argument, bringing up problems that need to be addressed, and making sure the relationship of the household runs smoothly. And culturally, the cultural norm, old cultural norms often imply the emotion work is reserved for females. Mm-hmm. And there is certainly evidence to the effect that the emotional management that women and men do is asymmetric. And I better be careful what I'm saying. Yeah. And generally, there is a cultural norm, and generally, women come into a marriage being groomed for the role of emotional manager. And I think that's pretty much stems from the fact that the woman is that who carries the child and has a deeper emotional bond to it. And therefore, the woman was left in charge of being the emotional manager. But that's not the case anymore. Lately, there's more and more men being in touch with their feelings, right? And that's pretty much in touch with their emotions, and more and more men, they know how to manage it, they know how to handle it, they know how to manage it. um, um, because but particularly what I particularly don't like about the old model of a woman's being the emotional manager is, let's just look at hormones, a female's hormones, estrogen and progesterone. It's a natural cycle that they go up and down throughout the month. A man's hormones, they don't go up and down throughout the month as a woman's hormones do. And hormones influence emotions. It's as simple as that. And many, many years ago, up until this hormonal aspect, neuroendocrinology was understood. I forgot which big guy in the psychology called menopause as female hysteria. So now I'm going like, would you like to have 3 months of it? 1 month it was not being. I should give you a year if you decided to give it that definition. Really? Let me give you a few hormones. Actually, no. Let me take away your gasoline. Let me see how easy it is for you to drive the car. Because in menopause, and oftentimes it happens during the monthly cycle too. Estrogen just stops. It's like no more estrogen. And then the poor biological body tries to do things and it doesn't have gasoline. And then of course you get aggravated. It's like, what's the matter? I have things to do. I gotta do like 20 things in 3 seconds, right? So yeah, many years ago, like it's been about 200 years ago, this guy, I forgot his name. I don't even want to remember his name because I just want to give him menopause. He decided that women are too emotional, and well, yeah, so let's try some hormones and see how he's going to feel then. But that's nowadays neuroendocrinology, it's much better understood, and women have a better understanding over how their hormonal cycle influence their emotions, and they can be more aware of it, because when it comes to hormones, it's something that just sneaks up on you. It's normally something that wouldn't bother you, like the kitty cat jumping on a countertop. That's something kitty cats do all the time. It's not a big deal. And then all of a sudden you find yourself snapping at a kitty cat. It's like, oh, and then there will be a trigger. It's like, oh, okay, so estrogen is low, so let's just take a breath. So it is a lot of emotional work that needs to be done. And you see that it's a huge biological aspect that places the female in charge of the emotional work, and not male. But male have done. Masculinity has evolved through time, and it's different now. It's much more different, and a lot of men have learned to be compassionate, understanding and compassionate, and just figure, well, I'm not in your shoes, but if I were to be in your shoes, I'd probably be doing worse. So kudos to all of those men that show that compassion for their females.
I just read an article yesterday, today, about the title of the article, and the article in the Times was, "Your manager is firing you, but he's the one crying." And it talks about how it doesn't say it. It doesn't put it directly, but the theories of being vulnerable that are real popular with Brene Brown, for instance, who's a social worker, by the way, who sold tens of millions of books and who's, one of the most popular speakers in the country, and YouTube has got billions of views. And she talks about being vulnerable now. Everybody, including male executives and female executives, I guess, are now want to be vulnerable, and now they want to show their human side. And so when they're having to let people go, they get very emotional about it, which I think is crazy. But anyway.
Well, yes, because we have to think about it, and manager at work is not necessarily the one who runs the company. So the manager at work is being told this is what needs to happen, and they are just the messenger. So don't kill the messenger. And oftentimes between the manager and the employee, a relationship gets to be built, and maybe it's a good relationship, right? And you just end up being friends with that. But just no particular job title is ever guaranteed forever. I mean, that's temporary, unless you have your own company, but not even that is guaranteed forever.
I was involved in a process where a female executive, very high level executive, had to let go like 200 people. And she was crying. She was very tearful, very upset. And I kept thinking, but you've got a job. Aren't we the ones supposed to be crying?
Actually, no. And it's not just, but it's not just female that feel bad about it. I mean, in my time in a corporate world, I remember my male boss having to go through a layout, and he was visibly upset about having to fire a few people, especially one of the person that he had to lay off was someone that had a lot of health issues. Currently, seeing a lot of doctors for their health issues, and he was very upset about it. So it's not just women.
So I guess I was just wondering, kind of like, how do the thing that I found most useful in your book was the word triangles, but I'm still not sure how the word triangles fit in with emotional work in the sense of evocation and suppression. I don't know how that all ties together. Is that part of the process?
Well, that's the biggest process of the fearfulness training and fearfulness techniques, and this is not something to be intellectualized, because this happens through the experience, and you have to have the experience to get it. Some triangles are easy to understand, and you can imagine, and you can, it's like, oh, I could get it, but this is something that happens through experience. And something magical that happens through this training and with the experience is that engages your automatic processes, your automatic subconscious processes. And when these are engaged without intellectualization, I mean, there is thinking about it, and you make sense of it, and you understand it, and all that. But when you engage the subconscious at an evocative level, because subconscious works with patterns, it doesn't. You can't give commands to the subconscious. It just doesn't work like that. And when you evoke this automatic processing in a healthy manner, they're going to register into muscle memory quickly through the beautiful aspect of neuroplasticity. So, the brain is a tool that the mind uses to differentiate to find similarities and differences. So when you work with word triangles, they're evocative, and because it means different things to different people. And when you present them well, you're not going to present bad triangles, because, but everybody, when somebody goes about emotion work, they go about learning how to get good emotions, right? I don't know people going into emotional work to learn how to get bad emotions. I mean, just not that I know of. How did we get here? So with the word triangles, they're evocative, therefore it's going to engage your subconscious to engage your processes over the meaning of those words to generate a state. And then if you have the state happening for a minute or two, and even 30 seconds at a time, and you have that happening several times in the course of a half an hour or 20 minutes, the subconscious registers it already, forms a pattern, and then it's going to be available to you. And then all of a sudden, you're not going to know. It's like, oh, I'm much calmer. How come I'm much calmer? I don't know. I usually used to snap at these events, and this kind of things used to trigger me, but it didn't trigger me anymore. I'm much calmer. My husband compliments. My husband is amazed of how calm I didn't react to this. Oh, you should see me with my boss. Oh, my clients give me good feedback. It just something begins to happen automatically without effort. And this is something it's hard to understand for a lot of people because we've gone through school and going through school and getting a degree and then getting hired for a job and all that. It takes a lot of work and it's hard work. So here I am teaching you word triangles, which is easy and simple and pleasant. And a lot of people don't get it. How can it be so important if it's easy and pleasant? It's going to stay with you. That's it for tonight. Yeah, we can cut it off. It's been it's been long enough, and we can cut it off, and we can definitely come back next. We can come back next Wednesday. All right. Good. Sounds good.
Thank you.
All right. So good night. Sleep well. And we'll see you next week.
See you later.
Night.
Bye-bye.